Hey, hi.
Hello.
Welcome back. My name's Kurt. I'm a physical therapist by trade, but a realist at heart. And today's reality is we're going to talk about shoulder pain. But in order to challenge myself, because I love this stuff, I could talk about it for literal days. I'm going to keep myself to a time limit. This is Thursday's 3-minute teach. Lindsay and I are going up to Seattle. I'm going to try to carve out some time to talk about one particular thing. Humerus has to for your shoulder pain. Regardless of diagnosis, the first thing that needs to be assessed and addressed and taken care of. Labral tear, this needs to be taken care of. Rotator cuff, supraspinatus tear, this needs to be taken care of. Biceps tendonitis, this needs to be taken care of. This needs to be taken care of. Shoulder impingement, this needs to be taken care of. Hopefully I can stick to the time limit. So let's head to Seattle. Let's get going. Let's learn about your shoulder. And I will see you. Bye. Oh, I zoomed out. I'm not out of frame. Bye. You guys are great, by the way. I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful day. All right, I'm going now. Should the timer start now? Welcome to Lake, what's this lake called? Lake Wenatchee. I thought it was Wamapoke, but that's from Parks and Rec. What the heck is that? What? What is this? Okay. Lost all of his limbs. We're gonna use Janky Jerry to talk about some shoulder pain, an introduction to shoulder pain. Specifically, we're gonna talk about kinematics today, specifically osteokinematics versus arthrokinematics. Your shoulder is a ball and socket joint. So it's a ball inside a socket. That means it has a lot of freedom of movement. Specifically in the shoulder, this socket on your scapula is a very, very, very loose socket. It's not very deep. So that means that your shoulder has the most range of motion possible. It also means the more freedom you have, the more opportunity you have for trouble. Meaning, it can dislocate, it can sublux, it can do all these things because it has that freedom to do things. So if we go back for a second, your shoulder joint, shoulder girdle, humerus, clavicle, scapula, that's that girdle. It floats on this rib cage. Wherever this scapula goes, is where this humerus needs to follow. We'll look at the shoulder girdle kinematics eventually, but right now we're just looking at humeral glenoid, glenohumeral joint. Glenoid is the socket of the scapula, and the humerus is the head of the humerus. Osteo stands for bone, so this is your humerus. I almost said femur. This is the femur of your arm, called your humerus. As this humerus moves, that's the osteokinematics, what we call flexion, forwards. As it moves out to the side, we say abduction. As it moves inwards, internal rotation, outwards, external rotation, and it moves closer to body, adduction, adds to your body. As these three different planes of movement means it can move in all three planes out, singular times, or all at the same time. So that's why it's a very complex shoulder, complex joint, because it allows you to do a lot of stuff. So what keeps our socket nice and stable? Ligaments, and then muscles. Your muscle's called your rotator cuff. We'll save that for video 2. Subscribe if you want to know more about rotator cuff injury. Within the joint, there are movements that happen concurrently as with the osteokinematics. That's arth joint, kinematics, movement. So if we go into flexion, you can start to see that this humerus has to roll backwards in order to stay in the joint. If it doesn't, it'll decrease that subacromial space, and there's a muscle that can get pinched called your supraspinatus. As it goes into abduction, if it doesn't slide downwards, it butts up and we get bone spurs, we get rotator cuff, we get any sort of shoulder pathology. But it's because the joint in itself is not moving as it should. How do we get this joint moving better? It's a good question. We'll talk about it. Not today, but we'll talk about it eventually. Promise. We look at this first before we look at the muscles, because if the joint is not working as well as it should, the muscles work harder, the muscles butt up against the rest of the joint, it causes muscle injuries. But it's a result of the joint not moving well. So the muscle gets injured, but the joint is the issue. Hopefully that makes sense. When we look at it from this manner, we can see how this humerus has to roll and slide inside the socket. In order to break down how this works, you have to understand the kinematics. I lied. We were looking at Wenatchee River. Now you're looking at Lake Wenatchee. Most of you are going to have pain with flexion, going overhead, or abduction, reaching out to the side. It's a combination of the movements. When you like put a jacket on or wipe your butt or do any of those things, it's a combination of those movements. But we need to understand flexion pain, abduction pain first, because everything that we do is usually in this plane of movement. And if we can't do that, of course, more complex things, more triplanar movements are going to start to hurt. When we know what is happening, we know what to work on. It's very simple. We do one thing, rather than all these exercises. We just do one thing, try to get this more flexible. My name's Kurt. I'm a physical therapist by trade. This is Benny. Hi, Benny. Coming up. And you can get better. Your shoulder can get better. Promise you, especially if you understand what is happening in your shoulder joint, how the joint is, he's really wet, how the joint is stiff in certain directions. That's what I'm going to work on. Then we're going to look at rotator cuff. How do I strengthen the muscles to keep the joint inside the socket as I'm strengthening, doing more advanced things. It's very simple when you break it down, and I'm going to help you break it down. I'm going to break it down for you. I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Stay curious. Bye. Hopefully that one was recording. Yeah, it was.